This is Let's Talk Best Intentions, all things wealthy, healthy, happy.
Oh, do you think that's a bit cheesy?
Yeah, but I quite like it. Hi everyone, I'm Tara.
And I'm Mel.
And this is Let's Talk Best Intentions. And over the next, well, I suppose however long it takes, we're going to be talking all things money and how it integrates into your wider well-being. We're going to be answering some of your questions, and thank you so much to those of you who have sent questions in. Please keep them coming. We absolutely love hearing from you. And we'll also talk about some of the more broader aspects of well-being, health and happiness, and how we can stay sane in this very strange time that we're in.
Yeah.
So one thing I would absolutely love to know, Mel, is how you have survived the last week since we last spoke, and whether or not there are any of those granola bars left.
Oh, yes. Okay. So have I survived the last week? Yes, I have. And I've actually been speaking to a few people about this, that I was quite anxious, I think, at the start when you're kind of looking at this undetermined amount of time ahead, and what that would kind of feel like. And I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it. It's actually been a bit better than I expected. I think, it's really nice having lots of people in the same boat that you can kind of talk to. And I feel a lot more settled into the routine of this now than I did a week ago. So that's kind of a positive.
Right.
No, there aren't any granola bars left, but I was actually really smart about this. I halved the recipe when I made it because I knew that I would eat as much as I made. So there's a top tip there if you're doing any home baking, just try and keep those quantities small. I think I'm going to do it like once a week, and I just keep it to small amounts.
Well, that's a very good tip, because I've just found a recipe that I want to use. Joe Wicks, who's the man of the hour, he's also got a banana and oat muffin recipe that I think I might try. So maybe I'll halve all of the portions so I don't end up
just have some mini muffins.
Little tiny ones. I mean, they're healthy, but I suppose even banana and oat muffins in vast quantities are probably not that good for you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about the quantities.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good to hear. Good to hear you're still alive and you haven't drowned yourself in a sea of granola bars.
Not yet. How about you? How have you found the week?
Yeah, it's been okay. I tried some of the things that you suggested last week around dividing up your days into sort of personal time. I was going to say social time, but it isn't really social time. Personal time, work time, personal time. And that kind of worked, but actually I think I need to do a bit more now on how I break up my work day.
Yeah.
Because I was just sort of sitting at the desk all day, just working and wondering why I suppose the sort of hour before lunch and then the hour before the end of the day, I just lost all productivity. And it kind of got to me a little bit, because I thought, I can't concentrate, but I need to do this stuff. And, I haven't even it's not even 4 o'clock yet. How can I stop working? And you just don't realise that in the office, when you're around people, you have those natural breaks and you have that ability to go to the kitchen and make a cup of coffee and chit chat with people. And that's just not the case when you're working from home on your own. So I think now I've got my personal setup, I need to start focusing on how I'm going to be productive in my actual work time.
Yeah, and I think that's actually something that's really common, because I was actually reading up on this again last week, and how an hour at home versus an hour in the office is so different. You can get so much work done, and actually if you look at how productive you are in the office, you actually might end up being more productive at home. And that doesn't mean that you need to make up those hours. You are working significantly harder, and it also means that you might end the day feeling a lot more worn out, both emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever it might be. So definitely having an awareness of that and taking those breaks more often, and kind of shifting your mindset. It's a different work day at home than it is in the office, and I think that's a big adjustment for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But then on a slightly less work related note, me and a few of my friends decided that we were going to try and do a virtual treasure hunt, all in different locations. And there was sort of clues coming through every 5 minutes. It was meant to take an hour, but it took 2 hours. And so obviously everyone's in different places. They've all got to find things in their houses. So in your teams, you've got to have found some really rogue things like roller skate and safety pin and a ball and a spirit level, and amongst your team of 4 you had to find all those things. Then there were some brain teasers, and then who had the widest barbecue, that sort of stuff. And then that all came in, and winners were announced. Unfortunately, I was in the losing team, which I was then horribly reminded by my mum when, after all of this, that I could have won, because apparently she's got a secret store of loo rolls that I didn't know about, and one of the questions was who's got the most loo rolls, which I absolutely would have won if I'd known about the secret stash. So
nightmare.
my mum,
absolute nightmare.
what's wrong with society? She is one of the loo roll hoarders, I'm sorry to say. But yeah, so that was really good fun, and that ended the week. We did that yesterday, and that was a really nice way to end the week. Quite sociable, bringing everyone together, and it gave us something to look forward to as well, which is
nice. And a bit of exercise, presumably running around the house trying to find all of these things.
Yeah, so it's a 3-story house. There's a lot of running up and downstairs to be done.
Yeah, there's your fitness done.
Yeah, but no, all good, all fun, making the most of it.
Good, glad to hear it. Right, so I think now we're going to move on to some of the finance questions that we've had this week. So again, big thank you for everybody for sending those in. We've chosen the most kind of common ones for this week, and then we might use some of them for next week as well. So, Tara, this is for you. Help, I am shopping so much.
Yeah, I did actually see this one come through, and interestingly, in a number of different ways from a number of different people, which is interesting. And you might stereotypically say, oh, girls, look at them doing all their online shopping, they just can't help themselves. But actually, there was a couple of guys who came on and said similar questions, but actually more about electronics and about wine. Spending a lot of money on.
That's a tough one at the moment, the alcohol consumption.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want any stereotypes here. It's guys and girls who are suffering from this, and it is really difficult because there are lots of deals out there, particularly on wine, but also everywhere, because companies are struggling, so they're trying to sell what they can, however they can, and who am I to tell people what they can and can't do to cope through this period? And if buying yourself something that's going to make you feel good makes you feel good, then maybe that is the right thing for you to be doing. People deal with things in different ways. But what I would urge you to do, and particularly because these questions are coming through, is think about how that does make you feel. Once you've bought the thing and it arrives and you've got it, and then you look at your bank balance, does that really make you feel good? Or is it making you feel a bit of regret, a bit of sort of anxiousness about the fact that you don't have that money anymore? Particularly as, and without making it too somber a mood, it's a difficult time. There's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's coming around the corner. A lot of people have are risking losing their jobs or having significant pay cuts as a result of the situation that we're in. Spending money that you don't need to spend can probably add to that anxiety and stress. So there are a few things that I would suggest that you do, and actually, because I said I was anticipating this, I've written them down because I didn't want to forget. First of all, and I think one thing that we should talk about is the fact that it's payday and what you should be doing on payday. But one thing that I would absolutely suggest everyone do is have your treat budget. It's just like on a diet, you're going to have a day where you want to eat chocolate, or you're going to have a day where you want to have a drink. Have your treat budget for your month, and know in your mind sort of roughly what you want to spend that budget on, and then give yourself one treat day a week, or maybe one treat day a month if you think you can manage that. So for example, Wednesday, have Wednesday as your day where you do your online shopping. You know how much you've got aside to spend, you have an idea in your head about the things that you want to buy, and then only let yourself do that on a Wednesday. And the second thing is write down the thing that you're going to buy, particularly if it wasn't in your mind at the start of the month. So if it wasn't something that you thought you needed or thought you'd really want, write it down
on Instagram and go, ooh, I quite like that.
Which we all do.
Yeah. And we shop.
Yeah, exactly. But write it down, and close Instagram, close the internet, come back to it a day later, and have that kind of cooling off period to work out whether you really want it. I know if wine supplies are running low, then maybe a day might seem like a very long time, but trust me, it's not. And the third thing that I would say is tell someone. There is nothing that is more powerful in my mind than having an accountability buddy. And if I, for example, said to you, Mel, oh, you know, I know I bought 6 bottles of wine because they were on discount last week, but it's an even better discount now, maybe I should buy some more wine. You might turn to me and say, do you really need that?
Do you think you have enough wine?
Do you have enough wine? You can see where the kind of thought process that's going on in my mind at the moment. But, you know, with anything, and actually delegating that decision making to someone else can make it so much easier for you. And then if that person comes back to you and says, I actually probably don't think you really need that, do you really? That's almost the decision taken out of your hands.
It's a good sounding board, right? You know, you do this for decisions that's not necessarily to do with money. You might do it with something to do with work or something to do with a friendship or whatever it might be. So use that same kind of approach, think about your money, and yeah, it might actually help kind of know what the right decisions are versus the ones that are a bit more impulsive.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last thing I would say, and it kind of saddens me to say this, but I don't think the situation is going to get easier anytime soon for these companies, and so it's possible that any deals that are there at the moment are likely to get better as we go through this, because you know the people aren't out shopping, people aren't spending as much money as they were before, so companies are kind of forced to do what they need to shift sales. So maybe if you hang on a little bit longer, the deals might get a little bit better.
Yeah. Weird times that we live in. I think this is probably a good, if that's, is that all your tips on stopping?
That's it.
Yeah, okay, great. This might be a good kind of point for us to talk about payday actually, because a lot of people might just have been paid just now or will be soon. So what are your top tips when that money kind of lands into your bank account?
Yeah, okay, so there's some really important things here. One is understand the hierarchy of money going out of your account. So the first and most important thing, if you have any short-term or what we call bad debt, pay that off as soon as you can. So that's high interest rate credit cards, it's store cards, it's anything where you're accruing quite a high level of interest. I don't mean mortgages, obviously we can't pay off a mortgage in 1 month's worth of salary, well most people can't anyway. Start with paying off your debts, then pay yourself. And what I mean by that is take the money out of your account and put it into a savings account at the start of the month. Don't expect to have the willpower to not spend that money if it's sitting there in your current account. We've just talked about the shopping situation. If that money is sitting there and that thing pops up on Instagram and you're having a low willpower day, you are going to spend that money, be honest. So pay your bad debts off, then pay yourself. The second thing, and kind of connected to that, particularly on the savings account point, open an ISA if you don't have one already, or save into your ISA if you already have one. And that is really, really, really important right now. The end of the tax year is only a week away. And if you don't use that ISA allowance that you've got now, you will lose it. You can save up to £20,000 a year in your ISA, get as much from your kind of general savings account that paying you no interest, get as much of that into your ISA as you can before next Sunday, I think the 5th of April is Sunday. So open your ISA, get that money in, and use your allowance. Sounds like someone's knocking at the door. But
it does. Have you got a guest that I didn't know was coming along to the show?
It seems like I might do. Hello, guest. The guest doesn't seem to know that I'm recording a live stream.
This is what happens when you're working from home.
Thanks for that. Okay, what was I saying? That threw me really off course. Anyway, there you go. The benefits of living at home. You get coffee and little snippets of information brought to your schools. Where was I? So open an ISA. Don't lose your allowance this year. And then the third, which was connected to what I was saying about shopping, make your treat allowance now. So whatever that is, if it's £20, £50, £100, make that allowance now, and you know what you've got to spend this month. And once you get to, I don't know, the 15th of the month and you've spent all of that, just be honest with yourself and know that you've got to wait till next month until you can spend that money again.
Yeah.
What about you, Mel? What have you been doing with your payday money?
Yeah, so my payday was on Friday. So yeah, I had the money come in. I have learnt over the years about my inability to save the money if it stays in my current account. So I totally agree with that. Just move everything out of your accounts at the start of the month. So I've got my ISA account, I've got my pension, I've got my Access savings account, and I just move those pots out immediately. I also make sure that all of my bills come out at the start of the month, because it's an absolute killer if you're getting, you know, kind of 6 or 7 days away from payday, and then your internet bill comes out and suddenly you're thrown off for the rest of the month, and then it feels a bit crap, and then you kind of think, oh, I might just dip into my my savings account because that was a bill. It wasn't something that I enjoyed spending money on. So with all of the ones that I can, they come out at the beginning of the month. And I also budget by not having all of my bank balance available in the account that I use. So I move in my budget weekly so that then I can't kind of overspend. And otherwise I look at the amount of money I have and I'm like, okay, cool, this is great. And then 4 days in, I've spent so much more of my money than I should have, because I'm like, oh, it's payday, I'll buy this, I'll buy that. And I'm a lot freer with the way that I spend. Like I will buy a more expensive thing in the supermarket, or the more expensive thing when I go out for dinner, or whatever it might be. So psychologically for me, I just kind of have to try and equal it across the month as much as I possibly can.
So maybe if you made your treat days in the second half of the month, then you'd be a lot more honest about what you can and can't afford.
That's actually a really good idea. I haven't even thought about that.
Instead of every Wednesday, you could have them as the last 2 Wednesdays of every month.
Yeah, because I find it so much more satisfying if I can get to the end of the month and I've got, like, even if it's like 50 quid and I'm like, that's great, I've done really well here, I'm really proud of myself. And it's one of those things, I think, that once you get into a good routine and a good habit, you actually do get kind of not a dopamine hit as such, but like it does feel good. Like you feel like you've made some really good decisions, and then you go into next month feeling really positive about it. And I think if you struggle to get to that point where you get that feeling of kind of happiness, you kind of are like, oh, is it really worth it? I don't really care. It's kind of the same every month. And you know, that can be really difficult to do. So even if it's, you know, a couple of quid, you know, that's still a positive kind of step forward. So I'd really encourage, you know, making those conscious decisions at the beginning of the month, and especially in the time that we are right now, you probably won't be spending in the same way that you have been. You know, you're not going to be going out for dinner, you're not going to the pub. Those impulsive kind of spends are basically shopping only right now. So if you can kind of take control of that, this is a really good kind of reset point, I think, with your finances to kind of make those conscious decisions.
Yeah, the way I've been thinking about it is save your isolation savings. Because if you
nice. Oh, I love that.
You really shouldn't be spending as much as you were, particularly if you live in London, really anywhere, because you just can't go out. You don't have those impulsive buys on your way to work and those types of things. So maybe you can shop a little bit more than you were before online, maybe, but if you can save your isolation savings, then all the better, particularly before the end of the tax year.
Yes. Nice. Okay, right. Next question. Are there any apps or tools that you use to help manage your spending?
Oh, there are so many out there. And the thing I actually think is really interesting about the way kind of the finance world, and particularly the sort of finance tech world, works, is that there are loads and loads and loads of really useful tools out there. And there are loads and loads of people who could really use those tools, but for some reason they just never really meet. What's that? Never the twain shall meet. Anyway, I'm not going to try and quote things like that. But yeah, so you have these tools and you have these needs, but people just aren't coming together. So I'd really encourage people to check out some of these apps that we're going to share with you, but then also just peruse the internet looking for the apps that solve the problem that you have, because I guarantee whatever that issue is, whether it's money related or anything else, there probably is an app for that. The first one that I find really helpful is Yolt, YOLT. It's a budgeting app. What it does is it taps into all of your different bank accounts and brings it all together into one place. And you can see what your spending is in different categories. So that could be entertainment, eating out, shopping, bit of a theme, bills, rent, all of that stuff. And you can see where it is, because I think at the moment, people tend to have different accounts for different reasons. You might have an Amex, which is a reward, or a reward credit card, not necessarily Amex, and you've got your Monzo or your Starling, and then you've got your HSBC, NatWest sort of high street current account bank, and things are coming out across all of them. It's really hard to keep track. Yeah. So an app like Yolt brings that all together in one place for you to see it, and it might be quite interesting data to have, knowing how much you really are spending in certain categories. Really good one, which I haven't actually put to the test of, but I saw pop up on Instagram this week. It's an app called Look After My Bills. And
this came up on mine, and I was like, I keep seeing it, and I'm like, I should look into this and see if it's as good as it looks. Yeah,
exactly, like subliminal messaging, and I've probably seen it in enough times in enough places that I'm like, okay, I need to look into this. The concept behind it, they were on Dragon's Den. It's a completely free app to use as a user. The concept behind it is they'll switch you energy providers every year to get the best deal that you can that is available to you for your gas and electricity. So you don't have to do anything. You sign in with them. They tell you what the best deal is now, and then, as far as I'm aware, like I said, I still have to use it, but the concept sounds great. They will automatically switch you, so you're always moving to the best deal. And I just think that is unbelievable. They get paid, so not by us as the users, but they get some commission from the utility provider. But that money is, I think it's the same commission across the board for everyone, so they're not incentivized to put you with a particular provider. Yeah. I want to check it out. I'd urge other people to check it out, and hopefully it's as good as it looks.
Definitely keen to do that. Anything that means that I don't have to do all of the paperwork and be on hold for 3 hours is definitely something that I need in my life.
I know, and you just don't do it, right? It starts to become the hassle factor, and you miss out on the good deals.
Yeah.
The third one, and I know I mentioned this last week, but I really do think it's an incredible resource, is Money Saving Expert. It has so much information on there about the best savings accounts. So if you are looking to open an ISA before next Sunday, check out Money Saving Expert. They've got all of the top ISAs for whatever it is that you're looking for, whether it's a high interest rate, stocks and shares ISA, all of these things. So go there before you make any decisions. Yeah. Reward credit cards, pensions, anything. It really is a very useful resource, so I'd check that out as well. Any apps that you use that I might not have?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the new kind of digital banks like Monzo and Starling, they all have your budget data within the app. So they'll give you kind of a pie chart, just as Tara was kind of saying about the different areas that you spend. So even if you don't put all of your accounts into one place, or you do it all in one of those, they're really good for seeing how you're spending, and they can give you like monthly reports on what you've been spending on as well. Another one that's really interesting is a company called Chip. And what they do is auto save, but instead of doing something like roundups, which I think Monzo does, where if you pay for a coffee and it's £2.75 and it will round up and then up to £3 and then save 25p into a savings pot, what Chip does is it uses artificial intelligence to figure out how much you can save. So it might be that one week it takes out £3.50, or next week it takes out £10.20. So depending on what your spending habits are, it will change how much it thinks you're able to spend. And that one's really interesting, because again, it's the money that gets taken out without you making the conscious decision, happens throughout the month, and then you have the savings pot there that you didn't really have to think about or do anything about. And what's really good about that is, if you are starting to run low on funds, it won't then take out too much money. So that's a really, really good one, and really cool app, super easy to use, lots of gifts in it if that's your thing, so definitely check that one out as well.
That's wow, I mean, it kind of needed to happen, and I've heard a lot of chat about apps that sort of the intention was to move down that way, but it's really great that that's actually come to market now.
Yeah.
I would say though that the Monzo, the kind of crude method of just rounding up as you spend, you'd be amazed at how much you actually do save. I think I looked at it and it was, a couple of £100 in less than a year, maybe even 6 months. If you use that card every single day for things like tube, things like your coffee, that little amount builds up, and that's can be quite nice when you're going on your holiday, if we're ever allowed on holiday ever again.
Yeah, that far distant holiday. Nice. And then on the investment piece, so I think we kind of spoke about last week very briefly, but when it comes to the environment that we're in right now, we spoke briefly about a buy and hold investment strategy, but can you go into a bit more detail on what that is and what that means for the current kind of economic climate?
Oh yeah. So I think I saw that question come in. Like, should we stick to our buy and hold strategy at the moment? And why don't I start with what buy and hold really means? So a lot of the time this decision is taken away from you if you're invested with a robo advisor or a pre-made sort of portfolio on a platform. Then the investment decision is taken. You'll be put into a split of maybe stocks and shares and some bonds, maybe some property. That'll be your split, and then you just stay invested in that. The buy and hold is that you invest and you don't make any changes. The opposite of that would be you've seen markets move around, you then actively decide to move the balance between, say, bonds and equities or different types of equities in response to this market environment. And what I would say, as someone who works in the industry, it is a really, really, really hard game to play if you want to try and move things around and be active and try and predict where the market's going to go. Even people who have access to all of the information that is publicly available or even privately available still get that wrong, and getting the timing decisions wrong can have quite a big impact negatively on your investment strategy, and that could really discourage you from doing any future investing. So my suggestion would be to anyone who isn't super investment savvy or doesn't really know what they're doing, buy and hold strategy makes quite a lot of sense. The only caveat I would make to that is what we call rebalancing, which is potentially quite complicated. And if you've got a pre-made portfolio, then that's probably being taken care of for you. But as markets move around, say if your equity portfolio goes up quite a lot, or in this case goes down quite a lot, you may want to rebalance back to the weights that you had originally set when you made the investment decision at the start. So it's not buy and hold, but it is taking you back to where you wanted your balance to be originally. And some potentially quite technical points in there. So if anyone does have any follow-up questions on that, then I'd be happy to do a sort of maybe a separate video or a separate post on that kind of how you get your investment strategy right and how you balance that through time. But I know, Mel, you've been doing a bit of investing yourself, so why don't you let us know how you've been dealing with that kind of balancing?
I have. But as Tara kind of said, the way that she's talking about like investments is slightly, to the edge of where, my knowledge and understanding goes. So the way that I invest is through robo advisors. So if you work in London, you probably would have seen ads on the tubes, Nutmeg, Money Farm, Wealthify, all talking about investment portfolios. And again, we can do another kind of session on this, but what they do is invest in low cost exchange traded funds. So instead of me having to be like, I think Tesla's going to perform really well and therefore I'm going to put all of my money in there, I can say, here's my £500, can you spread that across lots of different companies? I don't have to decide which ones. That's all done by the company and by their investment algorithms. So I really don't need to have that high level of understanding, and that is kind of there. They rebalance it for me. I don't need to do anything, and that just kind of sits over there as one of my accounts. There's also a couple of other good apps that you can look at. So Moneybox, for example, they do roundups, much like we talked about with Monzo, but instead of that money going into a savings pot, it goes into an investment account. So if you are just starting to think about investing and you don't have a lump sum there that you're then ready to kind of do something with, that's a really easy way to get started, because it happens automatically. And again, you don't have to make those investment decisions. And what I will say about in general when it comes to investing, nobody knows what happens in the future. So don't ever feel like, oh, I can't possibly do this because I don't understand it. You know, I don't really understand it. I just kind of understand the basics, and that's based on a lot of conversations that, you know, Tara and I have had. I work in financial technology, so I kind of get an understanding from that. But that's a lot of the topics that we want to cover in this series and the events when all of this hopefully clears up, is to talk about how to get started investing when it might be something that you haven't really experienced, understood, or have anybody in your network who can kind of help you get started.
Yeah, but obviously we know that, you know, ideally we would have probably had a lot of that tutorial type stuff before this this period of kind of market uncertainty. So if you have experienced this and you have been in the market, and if you have felt uncomfortable as the market's been falling and not just falling, I mean it came up quite a lot last week and kind of moving around all the time. If you have any questions, please just let us know. We want to make sure that we're being as useful as possible and sharing all the advice that we can.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, those feelings of no matter how experienced you are or how much money won't spoil, everybody feels that. You know, I banned myself from looking at my pension account when this all started because I just didn't want to deal with it. And I did look at it and I shouldn't have. You know, it's long term. I'm not going to touch it. That's not coming out until I was probably age 80. So, you know, that emotional reaction is all part and parcel of this. So just kind of knowing that there's other people feeling the same way, we kind of hope that helps in this scenario as well.
Yes. Well, there you go.
Well, that's all of the stuff on wealth today. But let's move on to food, shall we?
Yes. Yeah, let's. Well, so you said that you've got the leftovers of that granola bar mix.
No leftovers. No
leftovers. You've made the second batch. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I've made the second batch because obviously we have so much time. I thought I would mix up the recipe a bit. So I added a bit more cinnamon this week. I left the fruit bits in that I decided to pick out last week, and it was totally fine and a non-issue. So if you are going to make granola bars directly from muesli, it's absolutely fine, nothing to worry about.
I can't believe you picked out all the bases.
I spent about 15 minutes doing it. It was ridiculous.
Oh, funny.
And then I thought about adding some chocolate chips, and I didn't because, again, I knew I would kind of eat them all. But another kind of tip I would share on kind of snacking during the week, I have a stash of dark chocolate in the cupboard. Between 70 and 85%, and after like every meal, literally every meal, sometimes breakfast, I'll break off and have a square of it, and that really gets rid of my sweet tooth straight away. Instead of trying to like go through all of the cupboards and looking for like a cookie or a cake or something, I eat that, and then that kind of does me for a few hours. So just another tip for working at home. That's
really good. Well, I definitely haven't baked. But as I said, I think I said last week, my mum is a big baker, so there is no shortage of baked goods in the house. The only barrier between me and overeating on said baked goods is the stairs between where I'm working and the kitchen. So I think I've been okay. But what I have done, and just thinking about your chocolate chips and dark chocolate point, I bought myself one of those sort of trail mixes, nuts and sultanas and raisins and stuff, which isn't particularly adventurous. But then what I did was poured in some chocolate buttons, which I know is bad, but what it does exactly the same thing. So if you take a handful of trail mix and you get a couple of chocolate buttons, it takes away your sweet tooth, and it's only a couple of chocolate buttons. I mean, it's not the end of the world. Whereas if it was the whole packet of buttons, I'd probably eat all of them. I can't eat an entire packet of nuts. So I think that's the way I've been dealing with it. But
well, I
yeah,
guess
it is
that makes it the cheat day idea, right? Like, it's everything in moderation. It's kind of 80% what you should be doing, and then 20% what you really want to be doing. So I think that's totally fine.
I'm glad you said that. I was feeling a little bit guilty as I was sitting there opening my healthy snacks and pouring in chocolate.
Well, that's fine. I did that. I had my healthy, like, Monday to Friday, and then last night at about 8 o'clock I ate a whole bag of milk chocolate buttons. So it happens to everyone. You can't be perfect all the time.
And what about meals? Have you been doing a lot more kind of testing of different things cooking, or are you kind of doing the normal stuff that you would normally be doing if you've got a bit more time to do the cooking? Or
I think what I've actually really struggled with is, like, lunchtime. When I was at work, I would always bring a packed lunch in, so I would always decide before what I was going to eat, and therefore I could make that really healthy, and then I wouldn't have a decision to make when I ate it. That's obviously a lot harder when you're at home, and it's so much easier now just to, like, make a sandwich or do something like that. So I've tried to make a conscious effort now to try and not put like bread in my lunch, and try and make some yummy salads and get different ingredients. And then when it comes to dinner, I'm really well looked after, and my boyfriend does all of the cooking. So we have been trying lots of different recipes. I haven't been making them myself, but we are talking about food, I think, a lot more than we ever have before. And it's much more of a big part of our day. It's kind of like, okay, well, what are we going to have for dinner, and should we try something new? We're looking at different recipes. We're going to do a long roast today.
You should try something new, darling. Here you go.
I'm like, do you want a sous chef? I can help. But yeah, I think that's the being a bit more conscious, which we weren't doing at the start. I think we were just kind of doing easy stuff and not really thinking about the extra time. But I think when you're being a lot more sedentary, like, I really started to feel a bit so trying to find new kind of healthy recipes is actually on the agenda for this afternoon. So yeah.
Oh, lovely. Good to know. Good to know.
What about you? Have you come up with new recipes and spent more time cooking, or?
No, I mean, I can't laugh at you letting someone else do the cooking. My dad is a fantastic cook, and he has been looking after me very, very well. But that's just his job. I mean, he does it for my mum every day. And I think if I started trying to meddle, in fact, I did try and meddle in the kitchen, and I just get told what to do and that I'm not doing it the right way. So are
you doing it that way? Are you sure?
Yeah. Actually, have you? Because if you use this thing, I'm like, okay, you know what, you go for it. But yeah, so the food wise, no. Activity wise, I mean, starting to feel that sedentary feel, even though the food that we eat is very healthy and reasonably sensible quantities of healthy food. Just forcing myself to get out and about, but it's been helped by the fact that I don't know if you've been receiving these, and if you haven't, then maybe I need to send them your way as well. Exercise challenges.
Oh no, do you know, I haven't, but I've seen the press up challenge, and I'm like dreading somebody doing it to me, because that's just not my strong point at all.
Well, luckily for you, it's already been past me, and I've already done it and picked on some people. But there was the press up challenge, there was the 5k run challenge. There's a circuit session that my friend sent me last week, which absolutely killed me. I couldn't walk for 2 days. I was dead. So, and I just think it's brilliant. I said it on the story on Friday, I think, which is just, I mean, I love this sort of thing, and I think it's great that everyone is going, right, I'm allowed one day of one exercise session a day. I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm going to challenge people to do more, and I'm going to get out there. And I think it's helped by the fact that the weather's been so lovely as well.
Definitely.
But that's been quite fun.
Well, that's good. I tried the Joe Wicks PE workout on Friday morning. So for everybody who doesn't know, he's a body coach, and he's been trying to get everybody in schools across the world basically to make sure that they're getting exercise every day. And some parents have started getting involved, and I was like, okay, I will try it. I am so stiff. Oh my gosh. It was, I think, 20 minutes of exercise, like excluding the warm up and cool down. But that was,
it's for kids now.
yeah, no, I know. The thing, I was like, when I was at school, I was not doing like sit-ups or mountain climbers or any of this. I was just kind of running around like a headless chicken. It's a proper workout. It's brilliant. So that's a really good way to get moving. So he does that every Monday to Friday at 9 a.m. till 9:30. There's also loads and loads of boutique gyms in London now doing free classes through Instagram. So Cycle have got some really, really different ones if you want to challenge yourselves. There's lots of yoga studios who are doing them now as well. I think another space is just about to start doing it. So I think we've got a list somewhere which we can send out on the Instagram, but there's loads of really amazing free classes that you can use, and they're done throughout the day now. So if you can't spend that much time outside or whatever it might be, there's a good opportunity for you to still get moving.
Yeah, and we can ping over some things as well. There's been some pretty easy little circuit things that I've been doing, which don't need any equipment at all, and that plus running, plus even just running up and down the stairs if you can't get out, if the weather's rubbish, then things like that. But it's great to see everyone staying active.
If you're in a flat, rearranging all of your furniture just to find enough space to do your exercise routine, whilst your boyfriend can just hear you being like an elephant in the next room whilst your car jumps.
Speaking from experience there, by any chance?
Yeah, no, maybe.
Oh, good. Well, it's great to see everyone staying active and trying to be healthy and keeping spirits up, I think.
Yes, definitely. Okay, and I think the last thing that we're going to talk about is happy. So from a mental health perspective, what have you been doing over the last week to kind of keep yourself sane?
Well, I think the contributor to my sanity is potentially going to be the reason why my parents might ultimately kill me at the end of this this period of isolation, or at least send me back to London going, it's fine, you know what, you won't get coronavirus, just go back to London. My boyfriend kindly lent me his
is that a ukulele?
It's a ukulele.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know.
Really nice.
I'm not going to make you endure the sound of it, but it is really quite good fun. I don't play a musical instrument. Well, I did piano when I was really young, but I don't play a musical instrument, and I actually just think that this is a really great time to learn a new skill, try something a bit different. And you know what, it passed the time. Yesterday morning I spent a good couple of hours making a very probably quite horrible racket with that thing, and didn't even notice the time go by. So hopefully when I get out the other side of this, that might actually sound semi listenable.
Oh well, look forward to that rendition.
Yeah, well maybe that's a challenge. Maybe by the end of isolation, I can give you guys a song and see if you can actually recognise what it is.
Yeah, we'll be your accountability buddies to make sure.
Thank you. It means a lot. And also, I really do like feedback, but only if it's positive. So just keep your thoughts to yourself if it's not positive.
Criticism welcome here.
Yeah, exactly. But I just thought, as I said, learning a new skill would be quite a good thing to do whilst I've got some time on my hands, and hopefully my parents won't hit me over the head with it.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But no, staying sane, just about managing. And have you got anything to share on the extracurricular activity point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to just be a bit more kind of mindful at the moment of not getting bogged down in everything that's been going on. So I think, we've gone through this kind of news cycle peak of just it's a constant barrage of information that's been going on. And now it's actually starting to get a lot of people down, I think. So now there seems to be lots of news articles about, taking a break from this, just being in the moment, don't look at Twitter, don't look at the news, take that hour every day to kind of live in your own little world, be a bit more mindful of, you know, what there is to be kind of be grateful for as well. And that's kind of been helping a bit, because I think otherwise, you know, I know that there's a lot of people in situations so much worse than we are, and that's really difficult when you can't really solve things. So I think taking that time to just kind of take a bit of breathe, give yourself a bit of space to, you know, it's all going to be okay. That's been a bit helpful for me when it feels a bit overwhelming. There's also been some really brilliant initiatives. So N26, who's a digital bank, they have done an offer with Headspace, so that people can get free access to their mindfulness app, which I think is brilliant. And there's also a company called Unmind, who do mental health initiatives, services, whatever it might be, and they're giving that free to NHS workers. So if you're an NHS worker, definitely have a look at that. So there's all these kind of brilliant resources coming about, because I think everyone's now very aware that we're coming into that point where if you do struggle to kind of be on your own, if you have mental health issues, that we're starting to get towards that point now. So if that's, you know, any of you, there's lots of incredible resources out there to help.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, there you go. Wealthy, healthy, happy. All in, I actually don't know. How long's it been? 20 minutes, 25, half an hour? Oh, time's flown anyway. But yeah, it was really great to chat, and hopefully to all of you found it useful, interesting, and hopefully a little bit funny as well.
Hopefully.
We definitely enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you know, as I said last week, we'll be back next week. We'll keep doing this. We really want it to be as useful as possible to all of you. Please ask us questions, money related questions, but also about Mel's fantastic granola recipe, or you know, I can give you some tuition on the ukulele as well if you want it. So we're here for you guys, and we will see you next week.